today we're going to be talking about surrender in God and surrender in the divine, which is why I began the meditation the way I did today. And this is, if not the single most important thing a person can do to wake up. In the Yoga Sutras, Sutra 45, Chapter 2, it reads that self-realization is perfected by devotional surrender to God. So self-realization is perfected by devotional surrender to God, which means that your meditation practice, living a good life, all these other things, these preliminary practices, these are laying the groundwork for this final step, which is complete and total surrender in God. And this is often the thing which is hardest for most people to do. Why? Well, because for however many years you've been around, all you've probably known is your personality, who you think you are, how you interact with the world, your needs, your wants, your desires. And to imagine not catering to that anymore, even if you think you can not cater to it, I think that when you try, you might find that it's still kind of a problem. Okay? Because you are just so used to it. That's really the whole crux of it all. And what we're doing here with these spiritual practices is that we are learning to, rather than identify with this, to identify with the much larger sense of self. And the more you identify with that larger sense of self, the less you identify with the little sense of self. And all this is not about degrading or destroying the ego or, getting rid of this limited personality. It's just simply about putting your attention where you want it to go. And knowing that you've been putting your attention on the personality. That's fine. So what you want to do is put your attention on God. And Roy's commentary here is that because we are units of pure consciousness, and God is the cosmic unit of pure consciousness with attributes, surrendering our mistaken sense of self-identity is the immediate way to awaken to God realization. All other right endeavors should be known as preparatory practices. Now, I've been reading this for 10 years, and I've been studying it, I've been meditating on it, and I've read this sutra countless times. And as with all things, the reason we study these texts is to get it within your consciousness. You might not get it the first time. In fact, most of us don't. But the more you look at it, the more you read it, it starts to come about until eventually you have an experience and you can say, that's what that person was talking about. And my experience with this sutra that really helped me understand that it's not how many kriyas you can crank out, and it's not how intense you can be. It's really about how you surrender in the process. My experience with that was, one day a few months ago, I was laying down to take a nap. It was a weekend, nothing much to do. And I read over this, and I thought to myself, well, what if I was completely content? I didn't need anything, I had no desires. And what if I just forgot about who I was and saw what happened? Easy enough. So I did that. I was falling asleep. These ideas would come up, things I was thinking about earlier in the day, things that happened earlier in my life, things I wanted to do in the future. I thought, it's not important. So I kept returning my attention back to the sense of just simply being aware of whatever was there, whether it was hearing the air conditioning in my condo or feeling the bed against my back or, hearing one of my cats do something out in the hallway, just being aware of it. And what happened was I fell asleep. And when I woke up, I didn't really have a sense of myself. I was just awake. And I walked in the living room, and my wife said to me, well, gee, you just look completely blissful. And I wasn't aware of it. But then all of a sudden when she mentioned it to me, it made sense. And I realized that if I could practice doing what I did when I went to sleep as often as possible, then that blissful state, that just contentment, and it's not blissful in the sense of an emotion where you're just, really emotional, you're just there. And it's just like having patience. If you have patience, you don't really know you have it, right? Because if you knew you had it, it's not really patience, is it? It's tolerance, I think. But so what I found is from that day forward, when I went to sleep at night, when I took a nap, even when I went into meditation, if I tried to adopt that state of just letting go of this attachment to who I think I am and just simply surrender into the process, this peace came, and it stayed longer, and it stayed longer, and it stayed longer. And then the meditations became easier and deeper. Why? Because I wasn't trying to make something happen, right? And so in the Yoga Sutras, I keep coming back to this number 39. It's that as attachments are renounced, knowledge of higher realities and cosmic processes is acquired. So if I'm not so focused on me, then I can know this other stuff. There's another great quote that I found in the Truth Journal. But this is a quote from a rabbi, a Hebrew mystic. And it fits really nicely with this. It's that, he says, think of yourself as nothing and totally forget yourself when you pray. Only remember that you are praying for the divine presence. You may then enter a state of consciousness which is beyond time. Everything there is the same, or perceived as one. But to enter this realm, you must relinquish your ego and forget your troubles. Okay? Because remember, our ego and our troubles, that's again just a little aspect of our personality. When you meditate, remember, you're not meditating to stop your thoughts. You're not meditating to change yourself specifically. You're meditating because you want to know God, the divine. You want to know what you really are. That's the real reason you're meditating. And if you know that, you won't be worried about your thoughts. And you won't be worried about, your little personality. So you always have to remember with your spiritual practice, it's not about stifling or repressing or getting rid of something. It's about unveiling something. And the way you unveil it is you look straight ahead to what you want to know. And there might be things in the way. But as long as you keep looking and you keep going, those things will come up. And it's just like if you imagine you're in a forest and you're trying to get from point A to point B and there are trees and weeds in the way. What do? You don't just look and say, well, there's an awful lot of trees and weeds in the way, so I'm not going to try it. You walk where you're going to go, and then you push the weeds out of the way. And so when you're meditating, when you're practicing your spiritual practice in your daytime, just normal living, when a distraction comes up, rather than making it a problem, all you do is say, get out of the way. And then you keep going. And there might be another distraction. Get out of the way. Same thing. Because you're not focusing on the distractions, you're focusing on where you want to go. All right? So remember that. When you use a mantra, when you use breath awareness, and one of the things that I do, when you breathe in and you pull the current up through the spine, some of you already know how to do this, you pull the current up through the spine all the way to the crown of the head. Hold your breath for an instant, exhale, allow it to flow down, relaxed and soothing. When you do this, if you are sitting there, you're calm and you're serene and you're gazing off in the distance, you're focusing on what you want to know, and a thought, a memory, an emotion, a distraction comes up, give it up to God. Don't make it a problem. Breathe in, pull that current up through the spine. Something comes up, great, here you go, God. You keep doing that over and over and over again until eventually there's nothing left to give up to God. And when there's nothing left to give up to God, there's just God. And then you can exist there. And that is like a samadhi experience. That is a oneness experience. And that's what we're aiming for, if you want to aim for something right. Okay. So one other quote I want to mention today. This comes from Talks with Ramana Maharshi. And when I was thinking about how to explain surrendering in God, I just opened up this book and this passage appeared, so it was very nice. And the passage is Talk 543, and it says that many visitors came on one occasion, and they all saluted Ramana Maharshi with a single prayer. Make me a devotee or a disciple. Give me liberation of consciousness. After they left, Ramana Maharshi said, thinking aloud, all of them want to be a disciple, and all of them want freedom. But if I say to them, give yourself fully to me, they won't. How then can they get what they want? So we have to remember the reason this surrender in God is so important is because we have to be willing to completely and fully and totally give up all that we think we are to the divine. Forget about ourselves. Forget about our problems. Forget about what we necessarily think we should be doing. Give up our cravings and our attachments.